Yep.
All right. And here we are. Good morning, people.
Oops.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. That was not a very enthusiastic good morning. I can see where everyone is today. I can see where I am today. This is one of those days where like everything's happening at once and the weekend might not be over yet. So let's make this the official start of our week. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Jackie, I cannot hear you. Are you muted?
Yes.
Yes.
Jackie, you're muted.
Oh,
It's
I am muted.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
But you just complained you heard too much of me, and now you're saying.
Well, there's an echo, so I was hearing several Jackies, and that was a little overwhelming for me. One Jackie is quite enough. Thank you. So, I think
You're
John
welcome.
might agree with that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Okay. So let us get started today. First of all, is there anything new? Is there anything that we need to inform our beautiful FinTexters and clients about? No?
You, as in, was that a segue?
No. It was just an open-ended question. Is there anything that people need to know?
Well, this
Time
Just believe in yourself. Believe in yourself and decide that you want it today. Because today you want it. There you go.
Okay, good. So we're starting out with kind of an aphorism, a motivational quote. Okay, good. Anything specifically? Oh, how about this? How about the fact that we are open Mondays now in the morning? So we're starting out in the AM, right? We're out of this pandemic, and so now we're reconstituting our hours to be like they were before the pandemic, so we can better serve people. Do not forget that we're open Mondays in Cranford. That is a small thing. Now we're going to talk about another small thing today that leads to a large thing, which is cravings. Cravings is a big topic. We started with it last week. I don't know that we've resolved it because apparently people are still getting cravings. Mm-hmm. So we need to discuss this until cravings are not an issue for anybody ever again.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do.
You think?
It's a hard thing to do because, I'm actually kind of going through it in my house right now, right? Like if you're addicted to sugar, you're always going to have those cravings.
Possibly, right? Right. We looked at cravings as more of a holistic thing last week. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we think of cravings in any one particular way. If we think of them as a body thing, then we're doing ourselves a disservice because we're just reducing ourselves to our bodies and we're making ourselves kind of the effect of our bodies, right? We're saying that there's nothing more, and our whole job is to just do what our bodies dictate to us. Right? Agreed?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very much.
Then what would you say when it comes to cravings, if you had to break it down, how much of it is a physical thing? How much of it is a mental thing? How much of it is societal, psychological, emotional, spiritual?
Yes.
Small question there.
Yes. My answer is yes.
It's all of the above.
It is all of the above. So first of all, there's always something that can be done. So I think the first step is in education, giving people the knowledge of why they crave what they crave, which is what we did a little bit last week.
Yes.
We posted a link last week that addressed, like, if you're craving this is what your body is deficient in. So I think it is super important to listen to our bodies, to listen to what those bodies are telling us and to address it from the right standpoint. Sugar's a tough one to beat. Sugar is an opioid. It is not your friend at all. Not at all. It leads to a lot of cellular damage. It creates inflammation in the body, which then leads to more things. But, this is a good time of the year to talk about this because it's springtime and our bodies naturally purge and cleanse. You know how you want to do spring cleaning in the house? Your body wants to do spring cleaning. It wants to do a cellular cleanse. So it's a really good time to address taking things out that are not really good for it.
And in Jen's subtle way, She always brings the conversation back to how we can benefit people. So
This was very subtle.
we are promoting our immune program, our weight loss and immunity program. Obviously, it involves a detox, and it involves building up the immune system at a time where often people are getting sick. This is not the only time of the year where that happens.
Of course.
And there is a stomach bug going around that I've heard about as well. So
I
we
feel
do
like
want
it's been since December. It's,
to. Yeah, wow.
and I'm just like,
Yeah, that's right.
unless it's benefiting me on the scale, I don't have time for it.
This may or may not work, but we do want to build our inner resources, and we've talked about this for a long time now. That was the message that people should have gotten from the pandemic,
Yeah.
right? And unfortunately, not everybody did, but through no fault of our own.
So that's interesting because that was one of the things that was talked about on a local radio station. 1015, Bill Spadius spoke about natural immunity all the time. And he gave us a good shout out on that, this company, about how we were doing real things to help people during the
He
pandemic.
did? When was that?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Probably about a year ago.
Okay,
So,
Spadi's a fan then.
It was Small Business Monday, and somehow I got through, and we were able to talk about what real health is, and he loved that this company is doing real health. So he was like, "Yeah,
Nice."
really, so."
Well, I want to talk about cravings. Let's turn the conversation back to cravings because this is the second part of our discussion in what's going to be a 56-parter. It's a two-parter. And I want to turn that conversation. And one of the things that occurs to me when we talked about it in a holistic way, but there is an entry point generally. There is a place that it starts. Now, whether the cues are coming from our bodies, our low blood sugar, whether the cues are coming from just our eyes, right? The eyes get real big when we look at certain foods, or it's coming from because we're with our family, and our family tends to push our buttons. Regardless of where the cues come from, every craving starts out with an idea. I think that's the entry point. That it's all filtered into just that singular idea.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if I ate that? And then it seems that idea grows and grows and grows if we allow it to. So that's where we want to intervene. We want to intervene at the level of that idea. We talked about some ways to do that last week. There's a few ways. I mean, we could kind of reframe it. We could kind of compare it to our goals and what we want out of life and who we interpret ourselves to be. But how would one go about, and I'm going to pose this to Jen first as the coach.
Sure.
How would one go about not letting that idea gain fuel and snowball to where it becomes a kind of an all-consuming passion that we inevitably give into?
Okay. So do we have
Not an
more
easy question. I don't ask the softballs,
Yeah. Do we have more than 42 hours?
This is the part.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is to never go. This is like a simple action thing that you could do. Never go to a function hungry, because you're going to be put in places where in a position where all those things that are bouncing around in your head are now in front of you in real life. So it's going to be very hard to not satisfy those cravings if you're going on an empty stomach.
True.
The other thing is, I love intermittent fasting, because when you are in that cycle, your blood sugar regulates. So you're not looking for things that you normally wouldn't have. And your body is in a continual state of fat burning. So you're not really as hungry and you're not craving. The other thing is, I told you it was going to be a long one. The other thing is to make sure that your nutrition is solid and that your vitamins and minerals are addressed so that you're not deficient in those particular things that lead to those cravings.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, good. So if we establish a good foundation, if we're not starving at the time that this idea enters our head, if we have a good foundation of nutrition, then there might tend to be less ideas. Maybe that idea won't be as strong. Nonetheless, we still find ourselves confronted with these ideas. We've all been full before when we've, we could have a large dinner and the idea comes into our head, well, we have to end it off. We have to end it off with something sweet, right? For example. So once that idea exists, once it enters our consciousness, how do we prevent that from growing and becoming all-consuming? And it doesn't only have to be Jen. Jen obviously always gets first choice with questions like this that are technical in nature, but we have other human beings here. So I'd like to know some of your ideas.
I think it's knowing your cues. I mean, I feel like a lot of it becomes cultural. It becomes routine. There are things that we just feel we have to just roll with and do. So because there's dessert on the table, because we're celebrating a birthday, or maybe if we're having a Sunday family dinner and someone brings dessert, we don't want to insult somebody. So there's a lot of factors that play into for the dessert concept, right? Or if it's like, oh, the weather's nice, summer's coming, after dinner, let's go get ice cream with the kids, or let's go. There's just always that extra. Why can't it just be a walk? Why can't it just be? There's other things that you can do to replace the fact that you need to nosh on something else. Unless it's actually something you genuinely want to eat and you have an alternative of a healthier option or the right choice for your body. I say you really have to get in tune with your body. You have to see what you need. I'm pretty sure that after having, baked ziti meatballs and chicken parm you're not going to need a slice of chocolate cake but for some reason, there's always that room for a little more. There's always that opportunity to stretch more, but nobody makes the opportunity to stretch less.
Got it.
So it's a little, yeah.
Good. And Trish, what about you? So when that idea, and by the way, can you see the mechanics of this?
Yeah.
To where regardless of the circumstances, it just this little nugget enters your consciousness.
Oh, thanks.
And it's just an idea, right? Wouldn't it be nice? Oh, that looks delicious. Whatever it is, it enters your consciousness. And how would you prevent it at that level from growing and becoming such a consuming obsession, which it can do?
Yeah. One, I don't keep a lot of that stuff in the house. So if it's not there, especially in the winter, I am not getting dressed and leaving the house to go get it.
You have never gotten dressed up to go get Ben and Jerry's?
No, not really. No. Unless we're kind of out and we're like, oh, we're out, we're in the car already, then maybe it's an idea. But
you've never sent your husband
dress
on a chase to go get something like that.
I didn't say I didn't send somebody else. I mean, I'm myself.
I am human.
She has Cupid for that.
It's out of sight, out of mind. I feel like that's a good way for just to kick it out and then keep busy. Once it kind of the thought gets in your head, if you start doing something else, most of the time it just goes away.
Yeah.
But you have to make a conscious effort, I feel like, because I catch myself, like if there's, like we love dark chocolate pass, even if it's, it doesn't matter. It could be Lily's chocolate. The fact that it's there and I'm like, I'll just break off a piece. And then I'm like, okay, I'll go break off another piece. And I'm like, no, why didn't I just either take that whole bar, write that in there? Instead I go break. And then it's like, okay, I'm 3/4 of the way. And we've done it in the office even, where we've all taken a piece and then thrown it away because there's some, I don't know what it is. It's not just, and we're only talking about sweets in terms of like dessert and candies and things like that. But there's other things too.
Of course.
Where, something could be like mashed potatoes are like a huge, like I love mashed potatoes. Well, I could live on mashed potatoes. Really, I'm glowing just talking about mashed potatoes, but there's all other alternatives. And to me, I don't know if it's the texture where it is the taste, because I've come up with like ways to make cauliflower mash and it really tastes so freaking good. Like, it really tastes, it does, like, you're adding cottage cheese to it and making it creamy and it's rich and it does the same thing for me. Why is it that I'm like, okay, I'm so full, but I have to like, I'm just going to have this last little scoop because why would I save this little piece? It's a mental thing. It's like, I have to take myself out of my body and like, look, like hover over, like, stop. What are you doing? Stop.
Well, let me pose this and we'll start out with Corinne though. I mean, I'm going to assume we've all had the experience of having a craving, of giving into it. How often is the experience as satisfying as the idea that we have built up in our mind?
99% of the time, it is not as satisfying as you think it is. You know, it's the rarity that it is, but the truth of the matter is, you know, like everybody else is saying, like, you know, it's just not worth it. It's really, really, really not worth it.
Yeah,
You know, like if you're gonna go to a party, for example, be the one that brings the fruit.
well, again, that's a strategy, right? But we're talking right now about in the realm of ideas, and as we know that everything that exists in the real world starts out as an idea. I quoted this song a while ago on one of these lives, as from Peter Gabriel, and he says all of the buildings and all of the something else were once just a thought in somebody's mind, in somebody's head. I totally butchered that quote, but I can tell you the song, it's a very good one. But everything starts out as that thought, as that simple idea. It is self-created. And we've all had that experience where it does not live up to how big we build it in our minds. So that's the mechanism right now that we're trying to understand and we're trying to explode. How do we prevent that thought? You know, sometimes thoughts come in and go. And we're all thinking all the time, right? So how do we prevent that thought from growing and taking hold of us? Here's an image for you. I want to use references that maybe a couple of you are too young to understand, but Bugs Bunny, he used to confront this monster sometimes. There was this kind of like
hairy monster,
right? That big hairy red monster. And I feel like within us, we have that.
Yeah.
And when we get this thought, and then something adds fuel to it, and before we know it, we're that monster.
Yes.
Where we are very, very focused on getting that thing that we want. Usually for bad, right? Sometimes for good. So again, that's kind of where we are, you know, confronting that monster and making sure that he doesn't take hold of us. Right? Jen, thoughts?
So there actually are a couple of mechanical, physiological things that lead to cravings besides nutritional deficiencies, which actually is cellular starvation. So that might be a whole other conversation.
Well, what does that mean, Jen?
That means that, you know, we here in the United States have access to everything we want food-wise, and yet as a nation we are in starvation as if we were living in a third world country because we are nutritionally deprived. So when
well, wait, let's really make that distinction though for people, right? Because the people who are listening for the most part are not starving. You know, they're eating, if anything, they have the opposite, right? They're eating too much, and yet you're suggesting still that they are starving. So please explain that.
So from a physiological, I mean, this is one part. From a physiological standpoint, the urge to keep eating is the urge to satisfy something that's missing. So if you're starved on a cellular level, it's because you're missing those baseline nutrients. Just like if you're thirsty and keep drinking and can't satisfy that thirst, it's because on a cellular level, you are dehydrated. So we need to address that, which is not really the direction I wanted to go in, but it's a good one. And we can talk about nutritional cellular starvation another time.
Right. But well, we mentioned it, so I just want to give people a little more foundational understanding, right?
Sure.
So our bodies are made of cells. Those are the smallest part, the component parts that make up us ultimately.
Correct.
And they're made of something like 2 trillion cells, some crazy number.
Right.
You know, and each of them, you know, have certain functions, and they create energy, and they need the right constituents. And that obviously starts out with, among other things, nutrients.
Correct.
Right? So what you're suggesting is that the cells, even though they're existing, even though we're eating enough, they're not getting the nutrients that they need. How could that be?
Because we're not giving them the proper nutritional value. Like if you go and you're craving, I don't know, chocolate. Your body's telling you need something other than chocolate, but you eat that, you're still not satisfying the urge. If somebody comes in on our program, and they're thirsty constantly, sometimes we back down their water because they're not absorbing that hydration into the cells. So everything is a little bit counterintuitive to what we've learned, but the body is amazing. It's the most amazing biocomputer ever. We can't replicate this body, right? But it sends us the signals for a reason. If you're thirsty, but you keep drinking and you can't get rid of the thirst, you're not absorbing that hydration into the cells. Therefore, your cells are dehydrated. They are dying of dehydration. And the same thing is true for nutritional value.
Okay, so to give an example, it's kind of like that person who they're starved for love or they're starved for attention, and they get plenty of it, but for whatever reason, it doesn't reach them. They don't absorb it, and so they keep craving it more and more and keep doing things to get it.
Looking for love in all the wrong places. Exactly. Isn't that a song too? I've been looking for, yeah. So, from now, that's a very big explanation, but there are practical things to do. So our taste buds hold on to cells of what we've eaten. So like if you want eggplant parm or mashed potatoes and you were craving it and you satisfy that craving, the taste from that stays on your taste buds for days. So it will continue to act like a stimulant. So you'll continue to crave that food. So the mechanical fix for that is to use a tongue scraper. It actually cleans, it kind of gross, but it cleans the taste buds.
And there is a thing called a tongue scraper. Now, would a toothbrush serve the same purpose?
You can. Not quite, but you can brush your tongue, but there is a tongue scraper specifically designed for that. And that's one of the fixes for cravings too. Like a real practical fix. You know how days, like even hours later, you're like, I still taste that, right?
Yes. And then you want more.
Well, there's a real life reason for that. It's existing on your taste buds, which are then stimulating your mind. The other thing is your brain, actually. What you have to understand is too, that helps, but 15 minutes after you have the craving, if you don't give into the craving, there's like a time point that if you just push through it, it actually goes away.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing to talk about is the fact that in the moment, we have all this significance built up. It's so important in that moment to get what it is that we want. And yet thoughts, cravings, feeling states, these are all temporary states, even though at that time, it doesn't feel like it. It feels permanent. Our body is telling us you're going to die if you don't get this particular thing. Our mind is telling us we need it. We start to rationalize. And the rationalizations are insane. There is no such thing as a sane rationalization when we're talking about these things. Yet in that moment, they seem sane, don't they?
Yeah.
What are your favorite? Okay, let's go around. Tell me this. What are your favorite rationalizations to eat that thing that you know you're not supposed to eat? Jackie, this is reminding you of something. So let's hear.
Well, I feel like I kind of rationalize because it's also time frame. I don't necessarily crave anything, strangely enough, during the week. It's really the weekend. So maybe it's a weekend thing. So I'm like, all right, well, it's Sunday. It's just today. Tomorrow is a fresh start to the week, and I'm already prepped and planned for the week. So it's okay if I do it now. My problem is going back for seconds on that craving.
Sure.
It's not the one off for me. It's the fact
that's a fascinating thing. Yeah, people tend to. Yeah. This is a conversation in of itself. I would venture to guess that there are more giving into cravings on Saturday and Sunday than any other day of the week. And it's some kind of a weekend mentality. The structure is different. Maybe there's no structure at all. Maybe there's anxiety about the upcoming week. Yeah. Combined with an association that this is the weekend, this is what we do. Right.
Well, that you just hit the nail on the head, because I even noticed for like yesterday was fine. We ate great yesterday, and we finished early. Everything's cleaned up. My parents are over. We're all playing, and there was so much downtime from when we finished eating, and everything was done. Kitchen cleans, everything. It was kind of like, well, all right, we'll have coffee. So we had, coffees, and then we're sitting there talking, and the kid's like, "Oh, mom," because I only let the kids have to start on the weekend. So I did not even want it. I genuinely did not want anything. I was content. I was fine. I was fine with my coffee. And all of a sudden I was just like, well, it is Sunday and let me just get it in now because I know I'm not going to do it during the week. And I ate it. And as I'm eating it, it didn't stop me. I ate the ice cream and I'm like, it was a dark chocolate and almonds. I'm like, it was a half healthy, half healthier option. But as I'm eating it, I honestly said to myself, I was looking up like, I don't even want this. I did not.
So the rationalization, Jackie, was that it's the weekend. The week is coming. You're set up for it. You're going to be structured. But because the weekend, there's no structure. It's somewhat chaotic. Yeah. You better get it in now because you're not going to be able to during the week. So get it out of the way, and then you'll get serious during the week. This is a microcosm of what happens around Christmas time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? This is a smaller version of that. And we've talked about that every year. Yeah. People's computations around the holidays are, I'm going to go crazy during the holidays because I know once the calendar changes, then I'm going to be perfect because I've made this resolution.
No, right? And that's the problem. I mean, it's not even like that. It's more like, I feel like when there's a holiday, I'm labeling it something, right? So for example, this weekend we have we're in the middle of championship seasons for my kids with activities. This weekend, I know Friday and Saturday and Sunday, there is, regardless of me packing and prepping snacks and food, we will be eating out 3 meals a day because we'll be out super early and home very, very late. And it's just how it's going to run. So no matter how much I prep, I'm already anticipating it being busy. Monday through Friday, I'm not really concerned because I'm going to go with my motions. I have all of our dinners are planned and I have preps between now and Wednesday. Like I have a schedule. The holidays, for some reason, it's almost like I don't feel like there's a long enough stretch for me to, I don't want to say consistent because I feel like I'm always consistent even if I'm making poor choices, which is not good. But like I noticed with the holidays, there's just always something. And I feel like I tend to get 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Right.
But again, what we're talking about now is the rationalizations. It's the weekend. The weekend doesn't have the same structure. The week is coming up. That's going to be highly structured. I better get now while the getting's good because I'm getting serious tomorrow. I got to get my last licks in. It's a version of FOMO, right? I got to do it now because real life is starting up again.
Yeah.
So these are some great. I would love to document all of these rationalizations because again, they're insane, and I think if we could see them on the paper instead of in our actual thoughts, I think we would have that realization. Corinne, what's your favorite rationalization for giving into a craving?
My favorite rationalization is very similar to Jackie's. Like, okay, tomorrow I'll be better. I can eat it today because tomorrow I know I'm going to be better.
Yeah.
And then, tomorrow comes and tomorrow comes again. Yes. And then tomorrow comes again. And
Monday always comes. Monday always
exactly.
Comes. Yeah, time is a very confounding factor, and it gives us license for those dangerous rationalizations, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's this understanding that there's always a tomorrow. I mean, mm-hmm. And again, we know that's insane because we know the best players, they don't think like that. Tom Brady was never like, okay, I could screw around now because, there's another game next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? The poor players do that. The good players don't do that. The good players want to win every damn game.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Trisha.
So me, I struggle with the weekend too. So mine is when
no more weekends.
I know, but when Saturday gets there, I'm always like, well, I was good all week, so I deserve this little extra. Yeah. So like for me, it's like, well, I was great all week. So when the weekend comes, it's almost like it's owed to me.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more.
Right. It's owed that I can, eat that or drink.
We call that being an entitled eater.
Yes. That's what I am.
You're an entitled eater.
I like that. And then Monday gets here and I'm like, ugh.
What did I just do?
Price. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a hangover.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
So mine, I was just looking, and it goes back to like my mom was very much on not overeating, and she was worried about me all the time because I was an underweight kid. So I didn't want to eat. I was too busy doing things. I was like climbing trees and running, and
She
was not one that pushed food. But something snapped, and I just looked and saw it. It was like sitting at McDonald's one night when McDonald's didn't have all the chemicals in it. And I remember thinking, we don't go here that often. I have to get everything I like because I might not have it again.
That's right.
That taps into some sort of like primordial survival thing. You know, we can always have what we want.
Combined with a lack conversation, right?
Yes. So it like snapped in something. And I was just looking at it. Yeah, it's my mom's never struggled with her weight. And then I blame the 17-year-old kid, which is really when my weight kicked in. But something happened with like fear of not having it.
Jen, just so you know, so that's going to be $350. That's my hourly rate. We've had a breakthrough, and I'm charging all of you the same rate. But I'm glad you had that realization. I want to bring up a couple of other things. First of all, when it comes to those rationalizations, right? They tend to rush us at once, and there might be one that's kind of
right,
like you said, primary or primordial, and
fundamental,
that we rely on more than others. I would say this, that as we're kind of descending down that stairway into overeating hell, probably the last step, the last thing that gives us permission is I don't care. That is the ultimate rationalization. We find ourselves losing this fight because, right, at one level, we've made this decision that we want it no matter what. And then we say, I don't care. Apathy, the lie of apathy is what we tell ourselves. And that is the last, and it's the last bastion. It's the last rationalization that we have. And it does give us license to do bad things. Now, there is a solution to all of this. There is an ultimate solution. There are many other things. There are many solutions. There are many strategies, but there is one that I would consider the ultimate solution. But we're having cable problems now. We're having static problems, so I can't tell anybody what it is.
What?
No. I'm just messing with you.
Right? Like nobody's got a.
No, everyone's like an ultimate solution. What is it?
Leave them wanting.
Yeah, leave them wanting.
Next week talk.
Let's get into it. To discuss this ultimate solution, and I do mention this. Now, this is a segue for a shameless plug. In the book, in the Keeping It Off guide that I've created, soon to be coming to a Barnes & Noble near you, I discussed this. I was vegan for many years. And I would have these conversations with people, especially older people, and they thought I had two heads.
Thank you, Jackie.
The conversations would be like, well, what do you eat? And I would say, well, it's more a matter of what I don't eat. I don't eat anything that was alive or anything that comes from anything that was alive. And they're like, okay, good. So in that case, let's make you some chicken. No, you don't understand. A chicken was alive at one time, so I cannot eat that. Oh, well, I totally got it. Let's do chicken soup then. No, sorry, we can't do chicken soup because that comes from a chicken which was alive. Okay, how about some eggs? No, eggs. So these were the conversations. It blew people's minds. They couldn't get their head around it, right? Now, I'm not saying veganism is a good thing. It's a bad thing. I'm just saying that people couldn't understand it. But here's the take-home point. I would not eat anything that came from something that was alive because at the time, it was who I interpreted myself to be. It was part of my identity. And there wasn't then this big kind of tension between the things I wanted and the things I wouldn't.
Right.
Now, a lot of people listening will understand that. People who follow dietary laws because maybe they're kosher or they follow halal or something like that. It becomes part of who you interpret yourself to be. And then there's just less of a conversation about it. So the ultimate solution is identity. And now let me get a little judgy. Let that sink in. And let me get a little, well, it's not really judgy, but you can interpret it like that. There's a way to look at it that says if we're eating things that are bad for us, then we have some kind of an identity issue. Can you see that? Can you?
I see the identity.
Can you see that a way of looking at it like that? Something needs to be repaired at the foundation of who we are and who we interpret ourselves to be.
Yes.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was before I lost all my weight years ago. I wanted to be the skinny chick eating the apple, but I wasn't the skinny chick eating the apple until I was.
Right.
And then I looked at myself very differently. I was like, wow, it was a realization. I took a bite of the apple and I went, it's not a metaphor, by the way. I went, I'm a skinny chick eating the apple. So it is what we tell ourselves we are. So that inner voice has to be the right voice. It has to be who you are and what you want to be. So like when you get up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you say, today I am, put your hat on, whatever that is, what are you representing? Are you the skinny chick who eats the apple, or are you the girl who's eating the chocolate off the Haagen-Dazs bar and rationalizing it by giving the ice cream to your dog?
Right. Who do you
I like
interpret
that.
yourself to be, right? And how much does that matter? I mean, and this goes for, it could be an athlete, they follow a similar rule, right? Or people who are bodybuilders or anyone, am I the person who cares so much about my health, about my appearance, about what I want to accomplish, that the thought is not going to enter my mind as anything more than just a passing thought? Or am I that person who's so much about sensory pleasures that ultimately I'm going to give in?
Yeah.
Thoughts? Anyone else?
Well, see, I have a hard time, and this is not a judgment thing whatsoever, but vegan and vegetarian, I understand, but vegan in general is just something that seems so extreme to me. It's hard for me to wrap my head around.
Right. But that's immaterial because at the time, that's who I was.
Right. And I just think that vegan, there's so many things that come into play with that. It's not just what you're eating, it's what you're wearing, what you're washing with, what you're living, when I think vegan, I think soup to nuts, including the paint on your walls, how your clothing is made. So for someone to say they're vegan and when it just comes to food is just mind blowing to me, because unless you're living that vegan lifestyle in everything you do, it's like.
Well, I don't want to get off on the tangent.
No, but so the reason why I'm saying is by recognition. I mean, I personally, I enjoy food. I enjoy socializing. I enjoy all aspects of. There's really clearly there's not anything I don't eat. In all ways. But I think that I don't associate myself as who I am by what I eat or how I eat.
So there's no connection there. Now there doesn't have to be, right? But can you see where that is the ultimate kind of solution? What you stand for, right, would show up in different areas, including eating and lifestyle.
Lifestyle, yes, totally.
Wait, Jack, wait, hold up. Jack's the one that when we have a party, she shows up with a tray that's supposed to be this big. It shows up with a tray that is this big.
Yeah,
right? Because it's the whole concept of you're and same thing like me, right? Like we're the people pleasers. We want to make sure that everybody has something, and we don't want anybody to miss out on anything, whether it be good food or bad food, right?
Including yourselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I think we're all guilty, right? Like we're all guilty of the fear of missing out, like Dr. Rendelstein is saying, because we all do it, right?
Right. And that's another example, right? I mean, there are people who are so abundant who the conversation would never come into their head. Well, I better eat it now because I'm not going to have this opportunity again, right? As opposed to let's get while the getting's good. And again, and I don't want this to sound like, some kind of a criticism about anybody's characters,
No.
but just another way to look at it in terms of an identity understanding.
Well, when you said that, I did. So just to finish on that, like when Jen said the whole McDonald's scenario, that I can relate to, and the reason why I think so, I guess there's like a little slight difference with that for me, because when it comes to fast food, we don't eat fast food.
Right.
So in that sense, yes, that would be
That's
like
an identity thing, right? That's not who we are.
Let
Yeah,
me
we
go
don't
in.
need-
Yeah, so it's like, oh, if I'm gonna have McDonald's, you know what? I want that number one. I want the large fry. You know what? I'll take one chicken nugget. Like different, because in my mind, we never. And when I tell you never, we really, anybody who knows us knows we don't ever eat that type of food. So when we do, it's like, oh, and not even that. The strange part is, it's not like I'm treating myself either. So it's not like, oh my God, this is the most amazing meal, I have to have everything. No, it's like, what is it? The forbidden fruit. It's like, oh, like, okay, like this is okay. I'm getting the one-time pass. Let me eat, and go in on it. So, and that's how it tends to be with that type of food. I mean, I'm not reacting that way with carrots.
Understood.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
there's
like,
a different association, right?
Mhm.
So, okay, good. So we need to end off. I want to do that. I just want to suggest something else, kind of a final thought. When we talk about identity, when we talk about conversations that we have about ourselves, about who we are, a couple of us mentioned this idea of fear of missing out.
yeah.
And it's very easy to get into that mode. I would suggest that the pandemic itself has kind of rocked us into, to some degree, that way of thinking. And I think it kind of triggered some conversations that we might have internally about that. I mean, we've seen the reality, or we've seen the possibility of shortages, of lack as opposed to abundance, and we've been so fortunate and spoiled with abundance. But in our being somewhere, it's that does exist, and I think sometimes we do give in and we do fulfill that. So there is a different way of looking at it. There is a way of just making abundance part of our beingness. There's nothing we need. There's nothing we need in this moment to survive. We are whole. We are more than enough. This is becoming very
Oh
Stuart.
my God, you sound like
Right?
the Friends episode.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
a strong
Right.
woman.
Yes. So, but I think that's true at a fundamental place of our identity or our beingness. I think that we need to understand that and live out of that, right? Out of that more empowering kind of understanding. So, on that note, again, you all owe me $350 for this hour. Anybody who listens to this does as well. But on that note, we're going to say goodbye, and we're going to see everyone next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Have a good
Bye.
week.